You think you know hunger. You've seen images of emaciated children on television. You've read about plagues in the Middle Ages. You've heard of cannibalism in extreme situations. But you've never heard of Liverpool, 1847, a city that didn't run out of food, a city that had grain stockpiles, a city that had ships docked full of provisions, a city that let its own children starve to death on the docks while the rats fattened. The title is not a metaphor. Liverpool ate its children, not with knives and forks, with indifference, with bureaucracy, with fear of the contagious, with a sign on the hospital door that said "full," while children died 3 steps from the door. This happened not in the Middle Ages, not in Africa. In 1847, in England, the richest city in the world at the richest time in English history. And nobody talks about it, because history doesn't like to remember the moments when progress trampled the poor. Today, you will know, and you will not forget. To understand Liverpool, you first need to understand Ireland. 1845. The potatoes rot. Not just one potato here and there, all of them. The fields become a black, stinking carpet of rotten potatoes. The Irish farmer at that time lived on potatoes and milk. No potatoes, no milk. The milk also ran out because the cows had nothing to eat. 1 million people would die in the coming years. Another 1 million would flee.
And where does one flee when their country is dying? To England, the land of the rich, the land of promise, the land that the English called the workshop of the world. Liverpool was England's gateway to Ireland. The distance is short, a day's journey by ship on calm waters. In 1845, the first ships arrived with starving people. In 1846, more. In 1847, hell. More than 300,000 Irish people landed in Liverpool in just 1 year. 300,000 hungry, sick, desperate people arriving in a city that had 100,000 inhabitants. Imagine, a city of 100,000 people receiving 300,000. Suddenly, without warning, without preparation, the ships docked and the floodgates of hell opened. The ships were called floating coffins. Many Irish people died during the crossing. Typhus, dysentery, hunger. The bodies were thrown into the sea. Those who survived disembarked in Liverpool with sunken eyes, skin clinging to bones, clothes in tatters. They had no money. They had no relatives. They had nowhere to sleep. Many didn't even have a full name, illiterate peasants who never needed a surname. Liverpool looked at them, and Liverpool turned its back. The Liverpool docks were, at the time, the most advanced in the world. A system of enclosed quays, giant warehouses, steam cranes. Thousands of ships docked there every year, loaded with cotton, sugar, tobacco, iron. The city breathed commerce. The warehouses were full of food, grains from America, meat from Ireland. Yes, Irish meat continued to be exported while the Irish starved. English potatoes, fish from the North Sea. Everything passed through Liverpool. But the starving Irish couldn't touch this food. They had no money to buy it. They had no work to earn money. The English bosses said that the Irish were lazy and dirty and sick. Some managed to get work on the docks, loading the same ships that had brought other starving people. They earned coins. They ate bread crusts. They slept in flooded holes. But most couldn't even manage that. They jostled on the docks, thousands. Entire families sat on the wet ground, leaning against piles of coal, huddled together trying to warm themselves. The children cried. The adults had no more tears. The city passed by them. The gentlemen in top hats looked away. The ladies with parasols covered their noses with perfumed handkerchiefs. The police pushed the starving people off the main streets, behind the warehouses, to the river, where no one needed to see. In February 1847, the cold was so intense that the River Mersey froze in some parts. Irish children froze to death on the docks, frozen, in Liverpool, the city that had coal to heat 100 houses for each of those children. The coal was there, in the same warehouses, next to the children.
But no one gave. No one extended a hand. What the city offered, instead of food and shelter, was a place to die. The docks were transformed into a vast open-air morgue. Liverpool didn't have hospitals for its own poor. Imagine for refugees. In 1847, the city had a general hospital with about 200 beds. 200 for 100,000 inhabitants plus 300,000 refugees. The math doesn't add up. It never did. Sick Irish people were left at the hospital doors like sacks of potatoes. The nurses, when there were nurses, looked, counted, and closed the door. Full. Come back tomorrow. No beds. Tomorrow never came. The sick died on the sidewalk. Typhus. Typhus was the great killer. The Irish fever, the newspapers called it, as if the fever had a nationality. Typhus spreads where there is overcrowding, dirt, hunger, cold. The Liverpool docks were the perfect environment. Lice jumped from one body to another. The starving shared the same rags. The children played in the same piles of garbage. Within weeks, Liverpool was at the center of an epidemic that threatened the English city itself. And then indifference turned to fear, and fear turned to cruelty. Local newspapers began calling for the expulsion of the Irish. "They are killing our children," the editorial said. "They bring disease. They are a plague." The Irish were blamed for being sick.
They were blamed for fleeing famine. They were blamed for coming to ask for help. Liverpool police were ordered to dissuade the Irish from disembarking. Ships were prevented from docking. Families spent days adrift on the River Mersey, without water, without food, without a destination. Some ships were simply towed back to Ireland, back to famine. The message was clear: you are not welcome. We would rather you die there than die here. Now we come to the darkest point, the title, The City That Ate Its Children. It's not poetry, it's fact. Historians have found records, doctors' accounts, missionary letters, newspaper reports. In 1847, Liverpool ran out of space to bury the dead. Cemeteries overflowed. Gravediggers worked day and night, and yet the corpses piled up. What to do with the dead? The solution found was so horrific that it seems like fiction. The dead were taken to makeshift hospitals, and there, far from the eyes of the wealthy city, their bodies were used. Not to feed the living. There was no cannibalism in the literal sense, but there was something worse. The bodies of the dead Irish were left to rot next to the sick. Sick children slept next to decomposing corpses. The city did not bury its dead. The city used the dead as justification for not helping the living.
Why feed these Irish people if they're going to die anyway? Why spend money on hospitals if they're already rotten? Let the dead bury the dead. That was said. That was written. That happened. And the children? The Irish children of Liverpool, 1847. They died of typhus. They died of dysentery. They died of cold. They died of hunger. But some died of something else. They died of abandonment. Orphans, alone, without relatives in the city, they were left in the streets. Some were taken in by English families, not out of kindness, but because they needed cheap maids. 8-year-old girls working 18 hours a day in exchange for a bowl of soup. 10-year-old boys cleaning chimneys, lungs full of soot. The city devoured its children in the deepest sense. It consumed their childhood. It consumed their health. It consumed their dignity. Those who survived were never children again. It is estimated that more than 20,000 Irish people died in the city that year. 20,000. In a city of 100,000 inhabitants. This means that 1 in 5 inhabitants of the city died. But they were not inhabitants, they were refugees. The rich city buried the poor in mass graves and moved on. The warehouses remained full. The ships continued to dock. Trade continued to grow. Liverpool became one of the most prosperous cities in the British Empire.
The families who profited from sugar, cotton, and tobacco sent their children to elite schools. They built museums. They financed operas. The Irish dead were forgotten. There is no statue in Liverpool for the 20,000. There is no plaque. There is no street named after a child who died on the docks. The official history of the city speaks of trade, Victorian architecture, and the revolutionary port. It doesn't talk about 1847. It doesn't talk about the sick ships. It doesn't talk about the rotting bodies. Memory is selective. Cities build their identity on what they want to remember and on what they choose to forget. Liverpool chose to forget. To this day, when the Great Irish Famine is discussed, Ireland is discussed. The millions who died in the huts are discussed. The ghost ships are discussed. Liverpool is almost never mentioned. The city that received the starving and left them to die on its docks is almost never discussed. What did we learn from Liverpool? We learned that wealth does not make a city good. We learned that progress can coexist with cruelty. We learned that indifference is a form of violence. The Irish of 1847 did not ask for charity. They asked for work. They asked for a piece of land where they could dig a garden. They asked that their children not freeze to death. And Liverpool responded with full signs and ships being towed back to sea.
The title we use today, "The City That Ate Its Children," is shocking because we want to believe that cannibalism is something for savages, for barbarians, for people distant in time and space. But Liverpool's cannibalism was not of teeth, it was of a mission. The city had food, it had shelter, it had medicine, it had coal. It had everything the Irish needed. It refused to give. 20,000 people died because the richest city in the world decided they didn't deserve to live. Today, Liverpool is a different city. The Irish stayed. They built churches, they opened pubs, they started families. Their descendants are Londoners, yes, but they carry the memory of the famine in their eyes, even if they don't know it. The city still hasn't apologized. There was no Truth and Reconciliation Commission. There was no reparation. Just silence. A silence that has lasted 176 years. But history is like that. It always comes back. The ships of famine may have rotted, but the famine itself hasn't been buried. It's there, in the docks, in the holds, in the unmarked mass graves, waiting for someone to finally look at it and say, "We remember, we saw, we will not forget." Because forgetting is the second death, and 20,000 people have already died once. They don't deserve to die again.